Look, we don't have enough time in the day to really do a deep dive into the history of G.I. Joe. This episode's going to be long enough already. Just know that in 1963, a man named Stan Weston approached a toy company called Hassenfeld Brothers, which was later shortened to Hasbro, with an idea for a doll line based around the military, which would be aimed at young boys. Since the conventional wisdom of the time stated that boys don't play with dolls, Hasbro christened the line an action figure and gave them the name G.I. Joe after Robert Mitchum Burgess Meredith film from 1945. The line would operate on the razor blade sales technique, where the real money would be made selling accessories like vehicles, weapons, and other playsets. It proved to be extremely successful over a 3-year period. However, as the 60s wore on and the anti-Vietnam War sentiment grew, the toy line would de-emphasize the military theme. Instead, G.I. Joe would rebrand as action adventurer Joel Colton, who would take on bad guys with his lifelike hair and kung fu grip. This too would prove to be successful for a while. Then the oil crisis of the early to mid-1970s began to have an effect on the price of plastic, and, well, Hasbro decided to abandon G.I. Joe in favor of more suitable toys, like squirt guns in the shape of syringes and lawn darts. Yeah, those were real things that happened. Then in 1977, a little film called Star Wars hit the scene. Going into 1978, Star Wars action figures from a different toy company called Kenner were flying off the shelves. The figures were 3 3/4 inches tall, which meant they could use less plastic and be sold at a cheaper price. The success of Star Wars, coupled with the election of Ronald Reagan as president, leading towards a softening of feelings towards the military, led Hasbro to consider bringing G.I. Joe back in this form. However, the company was still struggling with how exactly to present this new lineup. It was then that one of the Hassenfelds bumped into a man named Jim Galton at the men's room of a convention center. No, I am not making that up. Galton was the president of Marvel Comics and wondered if his company could help plot this new G.I. Joe out. It's at this point that a Marvel Junior editor and Vietnam veteran, Larry Hama, enters the picture. Hama had been working on a pitch for a series called Fury Force, which would revolve around Nick Fury and his son Nick Jr. founding a counter-terrorism unit to take on Marvel's preeminent terrorist organization, Hydra. Hama would rework Fury Force into a pitch for G.I. Joe. Nick Fury Jr. would be redubbed Conrad Duke Hauser, and Hydra would get a new name with a different serpentine moniker, Cobra. This pitch allowed for the Joe's world to be expanded. By making the toy line a team, it would help in giving each member of the team their own personal backgrounds and personalities, and become fully rounded characters, thanks to Hama doing a lot of their backstories. Likewise, terrorists know no national identity, so that could help temper down the idea of this toy line promoting any form of war. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though, as Hama had to fight to get more female representation on the book, which led to the creation of the character known as the Baroness. Added to that, orders for the comic were, well, a little flat, as a Marvel sales executive named Mike Friedrich went into business for himself and downplayed G.I. Joe to comics shops, instead of pushing a project that he was working on, an adaptation of the fantasy book character, Elric of Melnibone, that Marvel wasn't even publishing at the time. Suffice to say, G.I. Joe actually flew off comic book shelves while Elric sat around and collected dust. Friedrich was fired soon thereafter. The comic's success was buoyed by a unique advertising campaign which worked around an FCC loophole concerning animation and commercials. 30 seconds of animation would be used to promote the comic, and then that 30 seconds would be trimmed down to 10 to promote the action figures. The success of Marvel's G.I. Joe comics is almost unprecedented in terms of a comic based on a licensed property, lasting over 155 issues in a 12-year span ending in 1994, with Hama writing most of it. The book has proved to be so influential that subsequent publishers of G.I. Joe comics like Devil's Due and IDW have brought Hama back to pick up his original continuity. Today we're looking at the first 10 issues of this landmark run. This is G.I. Joe Classics Volume 1. A train makes its way towards Washington, D.C. The train is carrying Adele Burkhart, a nuclear physicist turned whistleblower on a secret government project. Some call her a hero, others a traitor. Cobra calls her a hostage. The terrorist group uses the Baroness to infiltrate her security and escort Burkhart away by whisking her off in a copter. The Pentagon is torn, with many hoping that maybe Burkhart is better off dead. Only General Lawrence Flagg believes that a rescue needs to be staged. Flagg has been planning for some time by setting up an elite counterterrorism unit dubbed G.I. Joe. The team is led by Colonel Clayton Abernathy, codenamed Hawk, and features several troops in specialized fields of combat. Joining Colonel Hawk are Stalker, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Zap, Short Fuse, Steeler, Grand Slam, Rock and Roll, Clutch, Grunt, Breaker, and Flash. We'll be touching more on these characters as we go on through this story. Except for those last 8, they don't really do that much. The team arrives at their secret headquarters, known as the Pit, where Hawk briefs them on the situation. Surveillance has managed to track Cobra to an uncharted Caribbean island. Cobra has a full armory, so infiltration will have to come in waves. Grunt, Stalker, and Shortfuse will attempt to take out the air traffic control towers, while Flash and Breaker will work on taking down the radar stations. Scarlet and Snake Eyes will then take out the generators and hopefully be able to infiltrate the Cobra Citadel and extract Burkhart. Though some of the Joes do voice disdain for Burkhart, Hawk reminds them that they are sworn to defend all Americans, even ones they don't necessarily like. The plan isn't perfect. In fact, the Joes are detected almost right from the start, but Cobra Commander isn't worried, thinking that the numbers game is going to pan out for him, so he just throws more and more troops at the Joes. Breaker and Flash manage to take out the radar, and soon Scarlet and Snake Eyes have infiltrated the Citadel and made it to the room where Burkhart is being kept as Cobra Commander is changing masks. Yes, it appears that Cobra Commander wears his hooded mask for ceremonial reasons, and then switches to the faceplate mask when entering battle, unlike in the animated series, which I think just reflected whatever mood he was in that day. Stalker, Grunt, and Shortfuse begin taking out the Cobra airfield as they spot a motorcade carrying Dr. Burkhart and Cobra Commander. The Joes catch up to the motorcade only to find that Burkhart is actually the Baroness in disguise. In reality, Cobra Commander has an escape chopper back at the Citadel. It's then that Scarlet and Snake Eyes pop up and stare down Cobra Commander. Burkhart attempts an escape by trying to tackle Cobra Commander and gets shot in the process. It's enough for Scarlet to hit the Despot with a shuriken, and he's forced to flee without Dr. Burkhart. The rest of the Joes make their way in the facility, and it turns out that Burkhart is only wounded and she'll pull through. The base gets destroyed, but everyone knows that Cobra isn't done yet. There's no rest for the weary, though, as a few weeks later, Stalker, Breaker, and Scarlet are called away from R&R. Snake Eyes is pulled from a sensory deprivation tank, giving everyone a pretty good look at his face. Snake Eyes, his civilian name has never been revealed, and he's a skilled martial artist who was disfigured during a helicopter explosion, which also robbed him of his voice. Now, occasionally his scars have been healed through cosmetic surgery, only for him to wind up getting disfigured again. The team is being dispatched to the Arctic to investigate attacks on 2 research facilities on both the American and Soviet sides. Both places have been completely ransacked and the occupants killed. While investigating the Soviet base, the group sees a man with sled dogs leaving it before it blows up. Contact with home base turns up info on an indigenous mercenary named Quinn. The group tracks Quinn down to an abandoned plane. He lures them in with a trap and gets them to leave their weapons. After picking the guns up, he leaves them in the snow. The Joes don't give up, though, and continue after Quinn after making a makeshift wind sail out of the plane wreckage. With their new ride, the group actually manages to overtake Quinn and gets to an ice bridge that they know he'll have to pass through. Snake Eyes pulls out a secret stash of ammo, which the team fashions into a bomb to place into the ice bridge. The bomb goes off as Quinn goes under the ice bridge, but he rolls away at the last second and reveals that he pulled the firing pins out of the Joes' guns so they won't be able to use them on him. However, Quinn refuses to kill the Joes as he feels they've earned his respect. Instead, he meets up with his employers, who turn out to be Soviet spies, and accepts his payment, but then leaves them to the Joes. Yeah, that's really how this ends. Quinn makes his deal with the people who hired him, who aren't Cobra. Like I said, they're members of the Soviet Union who sent him after their own people for some reason. And then he just leaves them to fend for themselves against the Joes who are coming up over the hill because Quinn let them follow for some reason. The Joes celebrate taking down another Cobra stronghold that actually housed a giant battle mech inside. The battle mech needs to be disassembled and brought back to the pit, except this is all part of Cobra's plan as there's a tracking chip embedded in the robot. The Joes arrive back at the pit and take a robot down to the sub-basement. It's needed due to Colonel Hawk having to entertain government higher-ups to show the base off. While the others go about their daily duty, Cobra remote activates one of the robot's hands and uses it to lock several security doors. While the Joes begin scrambling to find a way out, the robot begins reassembling itself and making its way through the sub-basements. Clutch, Breaker, and Steeler manage to get out and run right into the robot. Thinking on his feet, Clutch uses several bottles of cologne and aftershave to make a homemade explosive. Unfortunately, it only succeeds in setting the robot on fire. However, it allows the team to get together and run into the armory. They attempt trapping the robot in the elevator by dropping a cannon on it. It doesn't really work. Finally, Breaker throws some silver paint into the robot's visual sensors, allowing the trio to lead it to a trap door, which causes it to fall into the bottom of the sub-basements. The robot is torn to pieces as the other Joes are freed, but the head reactivates, only for Flash to take it out as it tries to climb the elevator shaft. It's then they discover the tracking device, and if the robot had made it to the surface, then Cobra would have learned the location of the pit. Okay, so they needed the robot to make it to the surface so they could activate the tracking chip and locate where the pit is. But they could still control the robot remotely? The Joes have gotten word that Cobra has been funding a paramilitary militia in Montana. The group of survivalists seem to be planning something big. To that end, Hawk, Grunt, and Snake Eyes will be investigating, much to Grunt's dismay. Hawk and Grunt appear as a couple of new recruits who have to hold back during breaking training to avoid detection, while Snake Eyes does reconnaissance. The militia is run by Commander Wingfield, and he runs it like a real military base with marching orders and everything. Still, Hawk and Grunt manage to suss out the armory for Snake Eyes to investigate. It turns out that Cobra has provided 2 nuclear warheads to the militia, one to be used in the US and the other on the Soviets. Wingfield's plan is to launch an attack the next day and start World War III. Unfortunately, Hawk and Grunt get caught breaking into the armory, but Snake Eyes manages to radio a message to the rest of the Joes. He then rescues Hawk and Grunt from execution just as the plane headed for Russia takes off. Hawk commandeers one of the militia's planes and goes off after the warhead headed for Russia, while Snake Eyes and Grunt move on Wingfield. The two on the ground get an unexpected assist from Wingfield's wife, who realizes that the Earth is where she keeps all her stuff and it really shouldn't be destroyed. She shoots her husband in the back and surrenders. While this plays out, Hawk manages to catch up to the plane carrying the nuclear warhead for Russia and shoots it down over the Pacific Ocean. The Joes are rewarded with a new vehicle, the Multi-Ordnance Battle Tank, or MOBAT. Scarlet is unimpressed, not so much in the effectiveness of the tank, but in Clutch's attempts at hitting on her. Shauna O'Hara, codenamed Scarlet, was already a skilled martial artist and acrobat when she joined G.I. Joe, and then she came under the tutelage of Snake Eyes, where the two have formed a very close relationship. To put it simply, Clutch is barking up a hollow tree. The tank is being displayed at a parade being held in the honor of General Flag. However, Cobra has learned about the MOBAT, and Cobra Commander has a plan to steal it and kill Flag. As the parade begins, Steeler, Clutch, and Breaker pilot the MOBAT through the streets until the majorettes in front of them turn around and surround the vehicle with a banner. It's then that the float behind the MOBAT opens up to try to swallow the tank. The Joes are forced to pilot the tank through the city with the Cobra marching band in pursuit. The Joes are really unable to avoid anything as they run out into traffic, not to mention they can't radio anyone as their signal is being jammed. With no other choice, Steeler drives the tank into Central Park while Breaker tries to track the jamming signal. The Joes hide out in a pond and use some audio equipment to trick Cobra into thinking the cannon has been fired. They return to the parade route and charge the grandstand that General Flag is sitting on. It turns out the Cobra Commander and Baroness were under the stand and using the jamming signal equipment from there. Flag squares off with Cobra Commander but gets shot when a group of Girl Scouts get taken hostage. Cobra Commander and Baroness break free, but Flag is unharmed as he was just grazed in the temple. Our next story is actually a two-parter concerning an experimental Soviet aircraft that has been shot down over Afghanistan. The Joes are dispatched to meet with an Afghan tribe that has a CIA embed to claim the downed jet before the Soviets or Cobra can get to it. To that end, the Joes get a new toy, literally, in the form of the Rough Terrain Vehicle, or RTV. Stalker, Scarlet, Clutch, Breaker, Steeler, and Grand Slam will use the RTV to ferry the plane to Pakistan, which gives Clutch the ample opportunity to put the moves on Scarlet. Yarg. The group arrives in Afghanistan and meets up with their contact. The plane is loaded on the RTV while Stalker bonds with the tribe's leader named Ahmed. However, a group of Russian soldiers, led by Colonel Brekov, spots them as they're trying to leave. The Soviets open fire and corner the Joes in a small ravine. Both groups do significant damage to each other, and that's when Cobra leaps into the fray. This mission is being led by Lonzo Wilkinson, codenamed Stalker. He's fit to lead because he's a specialty in infantry, munitions, medicine, and language interpretation. He's also into wildlife photography. With both the Joes and the Soviets having exhausted their ammo on each other, Cobra forces swoop in and take the plane. Cobra Commander then orders the execution of everyone on the opposing sides. However, Clutch has a trick up his sleeve as it turns out the guns on the RTV can be activated remotely. Clutch opens fire and takes down the Cobra guards. Both the Soviets and the Joes agree to work with each other to their own benefit and take down Cobra, leaving the plane for later. They track the Cobra forces, crossing the border into Iran, which leads the group into an entirely different opponent. After moving through Iranian forces, the group finds the Cobra Citadel, a large, smooth-sided, cube-like structure. Stalker attempts to do some reconnaissance, but gets detected by security. Cobra Commander elects to lay low and let the groups infiltrate, knowing a certain truth about them. The two groups elect to break into three in an attempt to infiltrate the Citadel. Stalker leads a group of Scarlet, Zap, and Breaker into a small opening, and Clutch stays behind so he can try flirting with Scarlet over the radio, unaware that there are two Cobra troopers sneaking up behind him. Dude! Give it up, man! The group inside continues on as they lose contact with Clutch. They maneuver through several traps, including a flooded room, a falling wall, and a room full of actual Cobras. Still, they make it to the main chamber where the Soviets are waiting, because they've gotten into the business for themselves and are looking to take the plane. Of course, this is what Cobra Commander wanted. Neither side can work together long enough to succeed.
However, the Joes have a trick of their own, as it turns out that Clutch's flirting was actually a code talk, and that he knew of the two troops who were sneaking up on him. He defeated both of them and took one of their uniforms to infiltrate the Citadel, and is now holding a gun to Cobra Commander's head. Except Cobra Commander isn't that big an idiot, and he's just rigged a decoy with a loudspeaker attached to it. He's actually left the facility and already initiated the self-destruct sequence. Still, the Joes manage to make off with the plane, and they leave the Soviets to die in the base. When the team meets up with Hawk, they learn the truth. This was actually a decoy mission. The CIA picked up the real plane earlier.
Yeah, there was this weird subplot where it looked like Hawk was a double agent working for Cobra, but I guess it was just going this direction.
The Joes are soon dispatched to Cape Canaveral, Florida, where the Cobras have been spotted near a launch site for an experimental defense satellite. Cobra Commander has bigger plans, though, the entire devastation of all Cape Canaveral. The Joes have set up a 3-tiered defense ring, one a quarter mile away, one 100 yards away, and Flash and Breaker going on the shuttle itself as it launches. Which is great for Breaker, as he's already got motion sickness from it. Cobra launches their attack vehicles called Sea Legs, which literally walk out of the ocean. The outer ring tries to fend them off, but they are soon overwhelmed. The inner ring moves out to begin providing reinforcements, only to then be taken down with land torpedoes. Still, the shuttle manages to launch, but Cobra launches an intercontinental ballistic missile from their underwater base. While in orbit, the shuttle carrying the satellite really isn't able to move. So Flash goes out with a jetpack and uses the retro rockets to redirect the missile away from the ship. Back on Earth, the Joes manage to locate the underwater base for Cobra and attack with the full force. They overwhelm the terrorists, however, Cobra Commander and Baroness wind up getting away. Soon the Joes are on another mission, attacking a Cobra data storage facility in Nebraska. Breaker tries to download as much from the database as he can before Cobra can delete it. It's then that Cobra Commander initiates the self-destruct sequence again. Still, the Joes manage to get enough information on Cobra's next attack. It involves the assassination of Brian Hassel, a diplomat negotiating with the Middle Eastern nation of Al-Awahi. Hassel has a meeting with the country's prime minister, and Cobra is trying to crash the party. Clutch and Scarlet are tasked with protecting Hassel, while Stalker and Snake Eyes are to track down the exact specifics of Cobra's plan. Hassel is vacationing with his family on the French Riviera, and he isn't too welcoming of the Joes' sudden presence.
Why is Scarlet wearing a bikini? I get the idea that she's trying to blend into her surroundings, but even she points out the impracticality of this, as she can't carry her trademark crossbow. I mean, there's beachwear that you could have that would easily conceal a weapon. Not to mention, Hassel does point out he's with his family at this point, so I don't know how Hassel's wife feels that there's this smoking hot redhead following them around everywhere.
In what I'm sure comes as a shocking turn of events, Cobra attacks Hassel on the beach as Scarlet can't fight back. Thankfully, Clutch brought along a gun while pretending to be buried in the sand. Scarlet and Hassel book it back to the hotel and wait for Clutch to pick them up to get them to the airport. Meanwhile, in London, Stalker and Snake Eyes track down a known weapons smuggler to see if he's had any recent dealings with Cobra. The room is bugged, but he manages to reveal a major item of the Joes at the cost of his own life. Back with Scarlet, Clutch, and Hassel, they get on board a small plane and prepare to head to Switzerland, where the meeting with the Prime Minister is being held. Scarlet takes care of the pilot, who it turns out was with Cobra, but Hassel soon reveals the truth. He is the one Cobra is sending to assassinate the Prime Minister.
I guess that's why that family that Hassel was on vacation with mysteriously disappeared.
Hassel has Clutch and Scarlet tied up as he goes to deal with the Prime Minister. Of course, the two soon break free of their ropes and take down their guards. Scarlet then grabs a pair of skis and goes down the mountainside, where she crashes into the meeting room just as Hassel pulls a gun on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is shot, however, he was expecting some form of treachery and wore a Teflon vest for protection. The other Joes arrive and arrest Hassel. Also oil! Since she features prominently in our final story, let's talk a little bit about Anastasia Cisnarovna, aka the Baroness. The Baroness was an aristocratic heir turned spy for an Eastern Bloc spy agency, who eventually became second lieutenant to Cobra Commander and forming a triumvirate at the head of Cobra alongside her lover Destro, who has yet to appear in this comic. The Joes are at a New York City high-rise that was a front for Cobra intelligence. They're trying to hit the place before it gets demolished, with Zap, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes going in through the roof. However, the Baroness has been expecting them and activates a trapdoor, which causes the three to fall down into a holding cell. She then fills the cell with knockout gas and takes off in a vehicle carrying the container as the building collapses. Scarlet and Zap awaken in a jail cell with a 12-year-old kid. The kid explains that Snake Eyes is in the custody of Cobra's chief scientist, Dr. Venom. Venom intends to brainwash Snake Eyes into giving up the location of the pit. The kid is part of an underground movement looking to take back his hometown from the forces of Cobra. Okay, so this is taking place in a town called Springfield, which is located in the northeastern United States and was an industry town that was hit hard during the economic collapse of the early 80s.
It was then that Cobra swooped in and took over via a multi-level marketing scheme. That's right, in the Marvel Comics G.I. Joe, Cobra are evil Herbalife representatives. Or to be more precise, they're Herbalife representatives.
The kid explains that Cobra recruits teenagers via video arcades with subliminal brainwashing programmed into the machines. Snake Eyes is most likely being held at one of them. Back with Snake Eyes, he's trying to resist Dr. Venom's mind-bending techniques, which means soon Cobra will have to try using Dr. Mindbender's venoming techniques. The kid helps lure the Cobra guard into the cell where Zap and Scarlet jump him and take their uniforms. After leaving the facility, they swipe some street clothes and head towards the arcade. The kid gets recognized leading Zap and Scarlet into the arcade, and a fight breaks out which brings Dr. Venom. He decides to leave the teams be, as the numbers games will probably catch up. However, when he returns, Snake Eyes is apparently flatlined. It's all a trick, though, as Snake Eyes knocks Venom out after being disconnected from the machine. He then comes to the aid of Scarlet and Zap as the trio escape with the kid. The foursome makes their way to the Cobra Air Base, where the kid elects to stay behind in Springfield as his family is still there and they're going to need help. The Joes promise to return soon and take off. To keep Cobra from tracking their vehicle back to the pit, they decide to drop it off in the Atlantic Ocean and parachute just outside New Jersey. They'll have to take the bus back to New York City.
And that concludes our look at G.I. Joe Classics Volume 1. And you know what that calls for.
Oh, hell nah. What's up, dog?
Hey kid,
What?
I'm a computer. Stop all the downloading. Help computer.
I don't know much about computers other than the one we got at my house. My mom put a couple games on there and I played.
G.I. Joe!
Okay, now we've had our fun. How was this book? Well, on the plus side, I do think that these are some really good, fun, action-packed storytelling with some really solid artwork. I even think it's kind of fun to riff if you want to do that. I mean, it just seems to work really well for that. On the downside, the characterization is pretty flat. I'm willing to cut some slack because they're still trying to find their ground with these characters and develop them in a way. But yeah, they're really uninspired. I mean, Scarlet is basically the girl. Clutch exists to hit on Scarlet. The only ones that get anything close to reasonable development are Stalker and Snake Eyes, and that's about it, really. I can't tell you anything about Zap, Short Fuse, Steeler, Grand Slam, or Rock and Roll. I mean, I honestly can't tell you anything. It's just, yeah, like, I kind of want to know a little bit more about them, and I can't just track down the action figures. I mean, I wish they maybe did a little more to develop them as characters, show them more in their downtime than just, oh, they're doing something and they get called off on a mission. Just a little bit more like that, you know, more character profile stuff. I think that would have worked out really well. Still, this is a really fun book. I think it's a good read if you pick it up. I'm going to give G.I. Joe Classics Volume 1 a B. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.
Now, the Joes are certainly heroic in their own way, but I think we all know the truly bravest soldier of all was G.I. Jimbo, who successfully served 8 tours of duty on the kitchen stove.